This is the Seahawkers podcast, episode 503. I'm Brandon Schultz of the Military Seahawkers, and I am joined by my good buddy and Montana Seahawk, Adam Emmert. As Adam, we are celebrating the career of our beloved number 3, Russell Wilson.
Russell Carrington Wilson. And yes, this is episode 503. Who says you need to count in order, Brandon? We'll come back to 501 and 502, but with the announcement of the truly great Russell Wilson retiring, we felt like it was only apropos that we made it number 503. And Brandon, this preparing for this episode, it made me a little bit more emotional than I thought it would, to be honest. And I want to start this episode with, I love this catfish guy. That's my quarterback, man. Like, it was so much fun going back through and kind of reliving and rediscovering some of the greatest parts of having somebody like Russell Wilson as your quarterback.
It's fun, too, because some of the greatest parts are also great moments that some people may describe as corny moments. And I thought by going with your idea of making it episode 503, it honored that part of Russell Wilson as well, because we don't just have to honor the great play. We can also honor some of the great moments off the field, and there were plenty of those too.
It's a big-time career for Russell Wilson, no doubt about it. And I think this is going to be a great episode, Brandon, because I know that I was doing some preparation, you were doing some preparation, and we all know the separation is in the preparation.
Absolutely. And in this episode, yes, we want to recognize the career of quarterback Russell Wilson. And I thought, Adam, we should just start at the beginning, because Russell Wilson drafted in 2012. And one of the things that I think we all remember was the Bleacher Report article that came out. This was even before we started the show, because the draft happened. We didn't start. We missed the entire 2012 season. We started the show in 2013, but I was probably writing at Bleacher Report before we started the podcast. So I think I was writing for Bleacher Report around this time. And so I do remember the Donald Brown article that gave that gave the Seahawks an F for their draft, because they traded out of the number 12 spot to then draft Bruce Irvin, who was seen as a tremendous reach. Bruce Irvin went on to have an incredible career in the NFL. They take Bobby Wagner in round 2, and then they draft a guy named Russell Wilson in round 3, who a lot of people considered, Adam, to be too short to play quarterback in the NFL, especially for a starter. Just maybe he might be a nice backup.
Absolutely. It was interesting to watch the draft coverage when it went down. I mean, Bruce obviously had a very nice career and acquitted himself nicely as a player in this league. And then Bobby was even looked at as like a Utah. Was it Utah or Utah State that he came out of?
Utah State.
Utah State, yeah. And just people being like, Bobby who? And then I just remember the meltdown on some of the draft coverage, like ESPN, when Russell was selected, regarding him, his height. It's hard to overstate how unusual it was for somebody of his stature to be drafted in the league. And you had mentioned, Brandon, that we hadn't started the show in 2012. And one of the big reasons why we ended up talking about doing the show and all that was this draft, and Russell Wilson specifically for me. I remember going into that draft long before he was drafted and saying to anybody who would listen, I think this is the number 1 quarterback in the draft. I love this guy. And just being so over the moon that they took him in the 3rd round. And this was after giving Matt Flynn the massive contract. Everybody says the massive contract. It was a nice deal, right, but it wasn't prohibitive.
It was like probably similar to the Malik Willis deal of this offseason, a guy who had shown a couple things to where you give him enough of a contract that you consider him the starter, but it isn't above and beyond what any of your top quarterbacks were making.
Yeah, 1,000%. And I just remember watching Russ's tape and feeling exactly like John Schneider, who said the man tilts the field. And I was all in, man. And then after they drafted him, I was watching training camp every day on Seahawks.com, watching every throw back when they actually showed you things during training camp. And this really is the drafting of Russell Wilson was one of the biggest reasons I wanted to start this show with you.
Yeah. I was watching some of the draft coverage of that day, of the moment that Russ was drafted, because they did talk about Russ quite a bit in the lead up to him being drafted, and Mel Kiper talking about how the stature part of it. And you had John Gruden, who was also on there, and it was Gruden who was it was kind of in your position, who was like, this guy is going to be a great quarterback, or I forget what the actual wording was, but John Gruden was in Russell Wilson's corner and seemed to be the only one making a case for Russ in that 2012 draft. And so it was kind of cool to go back and watch some of that and see him pounding the table about Russ being good. But yeah, again, with the 2012 draft, I mean, you go down the list. We mentioned the top three, but in our previous show, we talked about some of the draft classes that came after. And this was a home run draft, a grand slam draft even, because every single player drafted played at least 18 NFL games. And
yeah,
to find any draft class in the history of the NFL where you can go down the list of rounds 1 through 7, they picked up two guys in round 7, J.R. Sweezy and Greg Scruggs. Scruggs was hilarious, by the way.
He was. I've forgotten about Scruggs, yeah.
But Sweezy played 117 NFL games. He was a starter for 7 seasons. You had Winston Guy in the 6th round, who played defensive back. Jeremy Lane, who was a prominent part of the Super Bowl roster. Corey Toomer, a linebacker in the 5th round, who played a bunch of special teams. Ended up playing 53 NFL games. Jay Howard, who was played on the defensive line. Just a lot of NFL players picked in that 2012 draft. Pretty amazing class he was part of.
Yeah, Robert Turbin, Turbo. I mean, he was a great player. Not a great player, but a great backup and a great addition to Marshawn. And one of the players from that draft that was an absolute joy to watch. So, as you said, Brandon, this was a home run draft, and this is kind of I guess maybe it's not the start of the legend of John Schneider, because you have Cam and Earl and Sherm all picked, years previous to this 2012 draft. But this was the one that really took this team to the next level. And it was interesting to see not just Russ's impact in 2012, which we'll talk about more, I'm sure, as we go along here, but man, it changed this team and turned it into a real contender right now.
Yep, a team that had never won a Super Bowl, and Russ and Bobby and that draft class and the previous draft class are what helped propel them to win that Super Bowl in 2013. So I wanted to go through some of the plays, some of the biggest plays, and Adam, you clipped out the top 7 plays, some of your favorite plays, some of Russ's favorite plays, some of all of our fans' favorite plays, and narrowing it down to 7 had to be difficult.
Yes. Also no, because 2 of them were 2 that you told me in an interview that Russ had mentioned as 2 of his favorite plays. So, to honor the man, let's give him 2 of his favorites, right? The hardest part was finding one relatively obscure play from 2012 against the Niners. That's literally my favorite run of Russell Wilson's career. And just because I'm sports petty. And then the rest of them, okay, fine. Like there's, however many more, 4 more. But with that said, you could spend 3 hours just watching 2-minute clips of Russell Wilson, of his greatest plays, and they're all freaking great. So was it hard to get down to 7? I don't know. Just pick 7 because they're all awesome.
I saw on YouTube, there was a video. It was an hour of Russell Wilson top plays, and most of them were Seahawks, but it even had some in there where it was Broncos and Steelers. And those ones were new to me because I didn't care to watch any of Russell's career with the Broncos, Steelers, or Giants. And yeah, there was even a Giants play in there too. And he was still doing the things that I remembered and recognized from his time in Seattle.
Just not as frequent.
No.
When we get kind of to the end of this episode and we're talking about when Seattle moved on in the tail end of his career, what kind of happened, I think there's some reasons for why that frequency dropped.
Yeah. All right. So where should we start with some of these top plays? I'm kind of curious just to start it off with what your favorite is.
Okay. Well, there's one there that's labeled makes two guys miss in against the Niners. This was in 2012 on Christmas Eve. And as we're watching here, it's Russ dropping back. He makes Ahmad Brooks miss once, then makes him miss twice. That's the second time that Aldon Smith, the late Aldon Smith, misses there. And Russ scrambles all the way up to a couple yards short of the first down. Now, he doesn't even get the first down. But this is a play to me. This made me laugh so freaking hard in the moment. Aldon Smith misses once. Ahmad Brooks misses once. Then Ahmad Brooks running back, whoop, misses again. Aldon Smith misses again. Like, he just clowned the 49ers this entire play. And because I'm so damn sports petty, this made me so happy in the moment that it was burned in my brain forever.
It's so much fun because he only gains 6 yards on the play, but he probably runs, I don't know, 50, 60 yards, just making dudes miss. And you said this goes back to 2012, right? So this was his rookie season. And you finally have a safety or a corner like flying in at the end of the play saying, I've had enough of this. You were going to the ground. And Russ even kind of makes that dude miss just because he slides and slides under his tackle.
Yeah, it still does, avoids the hit and all that. And that's one of the things that made Russ so great is he was able to figure out when to get down at the end of these crazy ass scrambles. And, what was interesting about this play to me, Brandon, was listening to Al Michaels' call. He's pretty lackadaisical throughout the call. He's like, yeah, he's running around, whatever. And then basically he's talking about Tarkenton throughout the majority of the run. And that was really the comparison early on for Russ, right? Was you heard the Fran Tarkenton comparison over and over and over again. And it turns out he's even better than Fran.
Well, Fran did have a very solid career. We'll get to some of Fran's numbers too, but amazing career. And the comparisons that he's before our time, obviously. And there are a couple quarterbacks that he is a little bit reminiscent from the time that we grew up watching football too. So, this was one of the plays from that rookie season that was really fun. All right, where you want to go next?
Well, let's stick with early on Russ's scrambles because this run against the Patriots, you'll remember it the second you see it, dear fan. But this one for me, it's a 3rd and 4. Games in the balance, we're down 7-3. I guess it's the first quarter here yet, but this is against the Patriots back in 2012 when we were massive underdogs to these guys. And I don't even think the Patriots thought this was going to be a struggle. And this was early in the game, and Russ picks up this 3rd down, breaking a tackle of OJ Mayo, spinning out of it and picking up the first. And it was kind of in this moment where I was like, this is a real team. And we have a real quarterback. This guy will figure it out no matter what when you need it the most.
Well, and the other big standout moment, I think a lot of fans will remember this game as the You Mad Bro game because this is the one where Sherman went up to Tom Brady after the game because Tom Brady talking all sorts of trash and Seahawks end up getting the win. The other big highlight from this game was his deep throw that ended up being the game-winning touchdown to Sidney Rice.
Absolutely. And I can hear the call in my head. I'm trying to think of the announcer's name, but he's one of the famous ones. It's one that you hear all the way. It's like Russell Wilson steps and fires. And he just nails that throw to Sidney Rice, and Bill Belichick's face that they panned to after that was fantastic as well. But I think that's the game where Tom Brady also realized like, oh boy, okay, there's a new kid on the block and he's coming hard.
Yeah, that deep throw, they end up getting that victory, going on to make the playoffs in that very first rookie season. And a season where, I think as fans, Well, I remember going in 2012, we knew we had a competitive, a championship caliber defense. And I don't think we quite knew what kind of offense that we had, because obviously Marshawn Lynch had established himself as the running back back in the season where they got to the playoffs and were able to beat the New Orleans Saints on the Beastquake run and get one more playoff victory. So they had the run game established. It was just whether or not, even in that 2012 season, there was the question of, probably up until this Patriots game, of should Russell Wilson be the quarterback, or should you go with someone who has a little bit more experience, even though it's not like he had a ton more of starting experience, but he had played in the NFL a little bit longer. And it wasn't until you had this game, you had the game against the Chicago Bears where they had the overtime victory, that really solidified, like, okay, Russell Wilson is the quarterback of this team from now on.
Yeah, you hit it right on the head. I think this game and the Bears game, those were the two. And you're right. The conversation was real around, should we keep going with Russ and all of that? And we're talking a few games into his rookie year, and people are already like, I don't know, and not really sold. I thought everybody was crazy. I was like, this is the dude. We're rolling with this guy. And
I think it was the way that Pete Carroll and the offensive coordinator at the time, because it wasn't Darrell Bevell that first year, right? It was, or had they moved to Darrell Bevell by the time?
They're with Bevell by this time, because they had it. Okay. Who'd they have the very first year? Gosh,
okay.
I can't.
Yeah, that was the 2010 season, right? And
right.
Jeremy
Bates.
Bates, yeah. And never coached in the NFL after that.
Right. Made the right choice there. You had mentioned, coming into this year, the 2012 season, being like, we knew we had the championship defense. I don't know that I was there. I felt like, yeah, they're good. There's young pieces there. But it was this year, this 2012 year, where about halfway through the season, you look at this defense and the ascending stars of Wagner, all the guys on the LOB, right?
Yeah.
And you go, yep, we got that. Now, is this quarterback thing real? And that's what made this year so much fun.
Well, let's see. Do we have any more plays from this 2012 season? Where should we go next?
Whatever. Right. Just pick one. Whatever strikes your fancy here.
This was one of my favorite plays from just of all time. And week 10, 2017, and it was a double spin move, the double pirouette throw to Doug Baldwin against the Arizona Cardinals. Ends up being a huge gain. You got Tyler Lockett blocking down the field. Doug Baldwin almost scores. He's pushed out at about the 1 yard line, but it was the way this started, with Russ rolling out to his left. And is that Calais Campbell, or is that another one of the Cardinals defenders? But I think he even had is it Buda Baker running in toward the end there too, trying to take down Russ. But yes, double pirouetting. You got Doug blocking on the outside early before he kind of
blocking.
Right. But then Russ unleashing the pass to the sideline, Doug Baldwin leaping up, and then just rolling down the field and nearly scoring.
Just a wild play. I mean, the only thing that's really a bummer about this play is the highlighter uniforms, but other than that, it's awesome. And this was one where, going back and watching it, it was like, is there any quarterback that's more fun than Russell Carrington Wilson? I'm not sure that there ever has been one that's been more fun as a whole. And then to be able to take his game to a level to, go to 2 Super Bowls and win a championship, like, that's a whole nother thing. But the throw to Baldwin here, this was part of the Russ magic, right? Like, there's no business for that ball to get completed. Like, the defender who comes over late, like, he should knock this down all day long. And somehow Russ would just make these things happen on the regular. Like, it would just go his way somehow.
Yeah. Oh, maybe that's Honey Badger that comes in and leaves his feet early trying to knock it down.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
32, Tyrann Mathieu. Yeah, fun play. Okay, so while we're on the highlighter uniforms, there's another highlighter uniform highlight from 2019 Week 5 against, again, another division opponent in the LA Rams. You got Russell Wilson rolling again to his left, and nothing there. But then he sees Tyler in the back of the end zone and places it just in the corner. As he's going up against Jalen Ramsey, I think that is, and just Tyler getting, this is a highlight play for both Tyler and Russ.
Yeah, it really is. And this is kind of Russ in a nutshell in a lot of ways. He drops back, he's got a clean pocket, and he's back there, he's patting his feet, kind of bobbing up and down a little bit, and then decides to roll left, and he rolls himself into pressure. Right. Like that's the interesting part here. He rolls himself into pressure, and then never mind, because then he's able to throw while on the run. He doesn't even do like the Sam thing where he is able to stop, flip his hips, and get his feet set, and then fire. That's something Sam's really great at. Russ didn't even need to do that. He's still on the run, moving to his left. The degree of difficulty of this throw is so outrageously high, it's hard to put into words, and puts it in the bucket, literally almost on top of the pylon in the back corner. And then Tyler Lockett's Tyler Lockett, right, with the tiptoes in there. And I think the fun part about this clip, if you go back and watch it on YouTube, guys, is watch Tyler after the play. He's like running up the tunnel a little bit, high-fiving all the fans and all of that. It was really cool. And this is just quintessential Russ and why he's one of the greatest to ever do it. It's so, and this was one of his favorite plays, by the way.
Yes. He had two that he listed when he was talking to Nate Burleson on CBS as part of the announcement of him joining that team. They asked him what his favorite plays were. He named this one to Tyler Lockett in the back of the end zone. Again, part of it is who he's going up against. Part of it is just the incredible accuracy of that throw. I'm sure the opponent had something to do with it too. And then the other throw was another division rival game going back again against the Arizona Cardinals. And this was a 47-yard touchdown pass to Tyler Lockett, where Russ just drops back from his own 45, launches it to Tyler Lockett, and hits him in stride about the middle of the end zone. The thing that stands out about this play is how there's no fans in Arizona. And at first I was like, oh yeah, that's just because it's Arizona football. But this was the COVID year. And so there were a few fans in the stands, but it really doesn't look all that much different from a normal game in Arizona.
True fact. And look, a lot of the Russ highlights that you're going to find online was from this 2020 COVID year. He was lights out pushing the ball down the field all year. And this was a fun play. It's interesting when you said Russ had mentioned the one against Arizona as one of his favorites. This wasn't the one that popped to mind. And again, it came from one of his early years. I don't know if it was 12 or 13, but kind of rolls to his right. He's in trouble and launched a bomb to Sidney Rice for a touchdown. And that was the one I thought he had meant. But this is a beautiful ball, just right over Patrick Peterson's outstretched hands and right in the breadbasket for Tyler. And the hilarious part, this is out of 1st and 20. So this is also quintessential Russ having to overcome some boneheaded offensive line holding call early on in a drive that would be a drive killer, right?
Yeah, it is kind of what sets apart the post LOB Seahawks with Russell Wilson, is that, there were reasons why they didn't win more football games, and part of it could have been offensive line, part of it defense, but it wasn't because that he had lost anything in terms of his ability to throw deep or even still make some really athletic moves like we saw in the previous couple clips.
Oh, for sure, man. And yeah, as we kind of continue on through the episode here, I think we can talk a little bit more about how the mid part of his career went and kind of towards the end. And, it's interesting. You mentioned, didn't win as many games as maybe you might think or something like that. His first 8
playoff
seasons,
games.
he had a winning record. No other QB had done that in the history of the league.
Right. Yeah. For what was it? 10 seasons?
His first 8, at least. That's what it was in one of his top 100 videos, and Pete was calling him out in the locker room and giving him credit for it. And yeah, just impressive dude.
All right. Well, let's go to one of the playoff wins that I think we all remember, and one that maybe we shouldn't have won, but it was the 2015 NFC wildcard game against the Minnesota Vikings. Ice Bowl game, really cold, even though you had Bud Grant, the former coach of the Vikings, come out in short sleeves. I think this was negative, it had to be, was it negative double digits or just negative single digits? It was super cold at this game, though.
It was like -5 or -10. And the reason why it was is that the Vikings were building their new stadium. And
right.
So this is at the Gophers home stadium, I believe. And yeah, a fantastic cold weather game. This is where future kicker Blair Walsh, missed a couple field goals here to help seal the win.
Yeah, current Vikings kicker Blair Walsh and future Seahawks kicker Blair Walsh.
Yeah, right.
-6 at kickoff and -25 wind chill.
And here's the thing is that Minnesota is what the South wishes it was. Like, it's a nice, beautiful, temperate climate with some humidity, whereas the South is just a sweaty hellhole with humidity. So when it gets that sort of cold in Minnesota with the humidity, good Lord, that had to have been absolutely freezing. The players wanted no part of this. Like, the Vikings looked like they were miserable the entire game. Absolutely miserable. And then for Russ to make that little slide and get down and get the ball, pick it back up, and then have the presence of mind to get his head back up and what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 dudes chasing him, roll out to his right, find Tyler. And on the play call, Brandon, they mentioned how astonishing it was that the offensive line didn't end up downfield on a play that was like that. And that's because they're used to Russ running around doing the scribble play, right? Like, this is how it's done.
Yeah, whatever you do when you're an offensive lineman for the Seahawks with Russell Wilson, you do not start running downfield because, it could be a pass, it could be a run. The funny thing about this, too, it's Russ trying to adjust his, trying to put in his mouthpiece as the ball is snapped. And so you can see him just barely getting it in. It's not even all the way in. And he's trying to then catch the snap with his mouthpiece, not quite all the way in. He looks back behind him, and you can see him reach up as he's going back for the ball to then push the mouthpiece the rest of the way in, and then go down to the ground to pick up the football. You got, 5 Vikings in pursuit there with only 2 Seahawks blockers that are even doing anything. And finds Tyler Lockett wide open in the middle of the field, who then picks up a block from Jermaine Kearse and able to then get down to about the 5-yard line. They end up winning this game 10-9.
Yeah. Yeah. And beautiful playoff football. I love it when it's played in the elements. I know a lot of people hate it, but these are the reasons why, because you get some unbelievable things that happen to overcome in those sort of, terrible conditions and be able to come up with a big play like this. This is quintessential Russ. And, it's interesting. The ball was snapped before he was ready. He was obviously looking off to the right, and then, YOLO, like, here comes the snap. So yeah, just another example of Russ making chicken salad,
Right. Well, one other game here. While we're on the playoffs, we have the 2014 NFC Championship game. And this was in overtime. This was after Russ had thrown 4 interceptions. Not all 4 interceptions Russell Wilson's fault. A couple of these passes were thrown straight to Jermaine Kearse, who then either bobbled them or it bounced off of him and in the arms of a defender. But 4 interceptions, the Seahawks able to claw their way back to 22-22 in overtime. This was a game where fans had left after, because they had only scored they had to do the John Ryan fake field goal for the touchdown.
Yeah.
And to even get their first touchdown of the day. But then thanks to some runs from Marshawn Lynch, thanks to some clutch plays by Russ, they're able to get it tied up. They actually took the lead, and then the Packers tied it up late to send it into overtime. And this was the throw that ended where Russ just drops back, clean pocket, Jermaine Kearse behind the defender, and the Seahawks get the touchdown and close it out to go to the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Dude, what a cool play. And you mentioned some of the events that led up to this. I mean, obviously the onside kick that Bostic screws up.
Right.
And then there was a 2-point conversion the Seahawks scored where it was Wilson to Wilson. And Russ scrambled around and was falling to his right, and Luke Wilson's all the way across the field to the left, and he throws up just a kind of a prayer ball, a little like the one to Baldwin, and it happens to land in Luke Wilson's hands as Clinton Dix just sits there and goes, oh, and just like watches the ball fall. My favorite part about this play, Brandon, is not just the beautiful moon ball here, and he throws it to the inside of the field and leads Kearse away from the defender a little bit, allows him to shield the ball from the defender here with his body. But it's a sad Aaron Rodgers face that if you watch this highlight, like a lot further on YouTube, guys, like just seeing sad Aaron Rodgers face for a minute is fantastic. And, you know, it never gets old. And this was a huge show. So this was to go to the Super Bowl, right? In the NFC Championship. Yeah. And the other throw that I think would have been cool to put in here, maybe I should have, was the fourth down free play throw against the Niners the year before for a touchdown. That was similar ball. But this does show just how dangerous Russ was if you decided to come after him, and they did. This is a cover zero call. They're bringing dudes.
That was one of the things going back and watching the highlights was just how many clutch throws Jermaine Kearse was a part of. And these downfield throws where they're 50-50 balls, and it was Kearse coming up with passes that, you know, you think of a lot of receivers that in those moments, they might go through their hands. They might, and that's why I mentioned the fact that it was kind of a redemption moment for both Kearse and Russ, and I think you felt that from Kearse in this moment too, as he throws the football in the stands at the end of the play. This was not the greatest game for him up until then, being able to redeem himself by catching this touchdown pass.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the interesting parts about the story of Russell Wilson's career arc is that he played with some really good receivers, like, you know, obviously Lockett and Baldwin, and, you know, Kearse had his clutchy plays. Yeah. But he never played with Randy Moss and T.O. and, you know, Jerry Rice or like any of the big time top 5 receivers that you would think of throughout his era, like many of the other all-time greats, you know, did. So that's another feather in his cap when you start talking about what his legacy is.
Yeah. You brought up the Wilson to Wilson connection for the 2-point play, and it got me remembering just how remarkable that play could have been. One of these top 10 type highlight plays, because I don't know if I remember ever seeing a moon ball thrown on a 2-point conversion, except for that play.
Yeah, it was a desperation throw, and it still just found the mark because Russ
found the mark, and the defender just panicked and couldn't swat it down, and there was Luke Wilson there to catch the pass and make the 2-point play. Because if not for that successful 2-point conversion, then the Packers able to win it on the field goal after that possession. Instead, only able to tie it up and send it into overtime.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things that made Russ so dangerous, was that the things he did was so unorthodox that somebody like Clinton Dix, who was a decent player for his time, that when they were in the position of trying to defend some of these things that Russ was doing, it was so unorthodox that they just were like, what am I even supposed to, and just would kind of freak out.
So before we get into some of the negatives, and maybe not necessarily negatives, but some of the arguments against Russ, because I think it naturally goes into this idea of, is Russell Wilson a Hall of Fame quarterback?
Yes.
And I think before we get to the obvious answer that you get to, Adam, I think we should have a little bit of discussion of, what does an average Hall of Fame quarterback even look like? Because I think, there's been some discussion around this, especially with Eli Manning's Hall of Fame candidacy. Like, is that a Hall of Fame quarterback? Is Drew Brees, he just gets elected first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback. So we know what a first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback looks like with Drew Brees. And then there's going to be obvious ones like Tom Brady, but I think there are some coming up that are going to be kind of close. And Russ may end up being in that category of is it close, is it not? I think obviously it has to be close because he's not going to be he's not in the first ballot category, as I think we're going to get into, but average Hall of Fame quarterback, not necessarily first ballot Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah.
2 championships, average, and kind of interesting. I think that's on the high side because you have quarterbacks like, I don't know, Bart Starr, Tom Brady that have a lot. And then you have guys that have
Joe
one
Montana,
or two.
Terry Bradshaw, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Dan Marino, who doesn't have any. But it's interesting how it also matches the All-Pro, that 2 All-Pros for your average Hall of Fame quarterback, which means that they were the best, considered the best quarterback in the NFL for at least that 1 year. And that's the AP All-Pro voting that I think they measure that by.
Okay.
Pro Bowls, 7. Season started, which I thought was interesting because you have some quarterbacks that we'll get into that didn't start a full 13 seasons for their team. You obviously have guys who have played much, much longer than 13 seasons. You think about guys like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Number of games started, 183. Number of completions, 5,540. Number of yards, 41,275. Passing touchdowns, 282. 202 interceptions. And I just thought it was interesting to throw in some of the counting stats that were negative, like interceptions and sacks. The average Hall of Fame quarterback sacked 344 times. And yeah, as I mentioned, 202 interceptions. So those are the average numbers. And I thought it would be interesting as we talked, especially as we get into some of the players who I think match up well with the type of game that Russell Wilson played.
I love where your head's at with this, and I like the different things that you picked out to look at here. I'm really interested to see where Russ stacks up in all of this, because I think it's going to be, I know you said that a lot of people think Russ is close to the Hall of Fame, like it's going to be a close call.
Sure.
I don't think it's a close call at all. I honestly, if Brett Favre's a Hall of Famer, then Russell Wilson's a Hall of Famer. And we can talk about that more in a minute. But with that said, I'm curious to see how these stats match up, to see if the numbers lie or don't.
Yeah. Well, because of these, you would think Russ is on, well, how many of these 10 would you say Russ is on the positive side of, and versus that he's on the negative side of?
He's definitely on the plus side for Pro Bowls, season started, game started. I'm sure completions. I know for sure yards. TDs, I don't know exactly, but I imagine it's higher than that. And I bet you his interception number is lower than 200 just because of the efficiency. I think the sack numbers are going to be fairly high. So I'd say 7 out of these 10.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. Well, we'll get there. One number that isn't part of this that I wanted to make sure that we mentioned, because it is an important Russell Wilson component to his game, stat that I think is in his favor all time in terms of NFL history, and that's fourth quarter comebacks. And we refer to this as the stat. It can be fourth quarter comebacks. There's also when I get to this next slide, it's also, I include game-winning drives too, because you can go into the fourth quarter where it's a tie game, and I think game-winning drive is important because, say it's a tie game, you end up winning. I think that should count as a stat too, but this right here, fourth quarter comebacks, the one where Tom Brady's at the top with 46 in his career, a one that spanned from the year 2000 to 2022. And he had 46 all-time. Peyton Manning, number 2 with 43. Ben Roethlisberger, interestingly, at 41, number 3 on this list. Matt Stafford, who's going to be a future Hall of Famer. And then you have Matt Ryan at number 5 with 38 fourth quarter comebacks. Drew Brees, who's part of this Hall of Fame class, number 6 with 36. Johnny Unitas, Dan Marino. Those are the 8 names of quarterbacks who are ahead of Russell Wilson with 32 fourth quarter comebacks. And he's at number 9 all time, just one spot ahead of John Elway, who is a Hall of Fame quarterback, at number 10.
Yeah. And this list really does just kind of show.
There's only one guy on here that you would be questionable about whether he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Questionable? No, there's no guys on here that I'm questionable about. I think you're referring to Matty Mediocre, who is I'm not questionable about, because that human being is not a Hall of Fame quarterback. And again, as we go through this discussion, I can tell you exactly why. But everybody else on this list, I mean, these are big time players that made big time plays throughout their entire career. I think one of the things that stands out is Russ being at 9. He did it in a short period of time, in 13 years. I mean, in comparison to Tom Brady's 22 years in the league. So nearly a decade more to get 14 more fourth quarter comebacks. That shows you just how efficient and deadly Russell Wilson was in the clutch.
Yeah, about 18 years for Peyton Manning, about 18 years for Ben Roethlisberger. Matt Stafford, 16 years. If I'm doing the math,
still going too.
Yeah, he's still going. And Matt Ryan, how many years
14.
is that? 14, 15. Yeah. So very impressive to be a part of this list. And why don't you get the Matt Ryan thing out? Because I'm not comparing Russell Wilson to Matt Ryan, because their games are just totally different.
Yeah, and one quarterback was like leagues above the other one. And I understand Matt Ryan won an MVP, and that's fine. But
yeah, one MVP, one All-Pro that same year.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of yards.
A lot of yards for a garbage organization going nowhere, doing basically nothing. And also a part of one of the biggest collapses in Super Bowl history as well. So both Matt Ryan and Russell Wilson lost to the Patriots in a Super Bowl. One is Matt Ryan's fault. The other is not Russell Wilson's fault. So that's
maybe a little bit.
That's where you throw that ball. Like, I mean, it's just, we went over it at the time, and like all of that, like it was the right read. It was the right throw. You know, that Malcolm guy made a whatever play at the end of the day. But here's one of the things that I think I want to come back to over and over again as we talk about Russell Wilson's Hall of Fame credentials. Matt Ryan. How many teams feared Matt Ryan?
Right.
Like, how often was Matt Ryan feared when you went into that game?
Yeah.
Rarely ever. Like, it was just like, yeah, he's really good. You got to pay attention. But like, nobody was afraid to face Matty Mediocre. Nobody. And I think that's one of the big keys to whether or not a guy is a Hall of Fame player or not. Was Matt Ryan one of the best 5 quarterbacks in his career for more than 3 or 5 years during his era? I don't think he was. I really don't.
He had Julio Jones to throw to.
There's that as well. And he had Kyle Shanahan dialing up the plays for him in his MVP year. And we all know that Kyle is able to make, you know, even the last pick of the draft look like a real quarterback. And look, I've never thought much of Matt Ryan. Again, Matty Mediocre to me. Just not a Hall of Famer.
Okay, well, we don't need to spend any more time on why Matt Ryan isn't a Hall of Famer. We can compare Russ, though. And the reason why I didn't want to compare him to a guy like Matt Ryan or even a guy like Drew Brees, who Russ had talked about how he had compared just a lot of his game, or how he had watched a lot of Drew Brees to help his game. Another one of those quarterbacks that he watched a lot of, though, was Steve Young. And it got me thinking, okay, who are the top quarterbacks in the Hall of Fame who are dual threat quarterbacks? Because I think this is where Russ obviously fits the most. And when he retired, Russell Wilson is the only quarterback in NFL history currently with more than 40,000 passing yards and more than 5,000 rushing yards. And you look at a couple of these other players like John Elway, Steve Young, Fran Tarkenton, they all match up pretty close in terms of numbers. Obviously, John Elway, a little bit more of a pocket type passer, having 51,475 passing yards, 300 touchdowns. Russ only 5,000 yards behind him, essentially, but has 53 more touchdown passes, Adam.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a massive deal. And he did it in a shorter window as well. Like, John Elway played forever. Like, he played through uniform changes, right? Like, he played in the league a long time. And I'm not calling John Elway.
That's why I put those the starting season numbers up there too, to kind of give you an idea of just how many years it took to produce some of these numbers. So you had Fran Tarkenton, who is on this list, and the numbers match up almost very similar. Fran Tarkenton played for 18 seasons, though, and he was sacked 570 times. That's the one stat that stands out with both these guys. Both Fran Tarkenton and Russell Wilson sacked exactly 570 times in their careers. And Fran played, a third of more career than Russ did as a starter, 18 seasons starting versus Russ 12 seasons. But 9-time Pro Bowler for Fran, Russ a 10-time Pro Bowler. Fran did have that one MVP season in 1975, which was his All-Pro season. 47,000 passing yards to Russ's. If you round up 47,000 passing yards, touchdown numbers very similar: 353 for Russ, 342 for Tarkenton, and Russ does have about 2,000 more rushing yards, though.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, only player over 40,000 passing yards, over 5,000 rushing yards. And some people might call that a niche stat, but I think this is the beginning of the quarterback really changing. I mean, you could go back to Tarkenton, but he was just kind of an anomaly that everybody was like, yeah, okay, like he does that. John ran around for sure, but I really would say Steve Young was kind of the beginning of the true dual threat quarterback. And it was slow to be adopted for so many years. And I feel like Russ's success, especially early on in his career, really did just open that wide open. I understand Vic came before him, but I think a lot of people still looked at Vic and was like, yeah, he's super fast and he's crazy to try to bring down. But as a passer, until he got to the Eagles late, after he's out of prison and all that stuff, he just really wasn't polished, right? And Russ was polished as a passer right out the gate. And he was dynamic as a runner. And he wasn't Vic fast, but he was able to, he had just enough juice to, jitterbug his way out of things. And I really think that the way he played the game literally changed the game.
The other thing that, because we brought up before your average Hall of Fame quarterback, and we talked about the sack numbers, 344. The thing that stands out then when you look at this list of quarterbacks, the average Hall of Fame quarterback has reached around that many, pretty crazy number of sacks, right? 344. But you look on this list of the other dual threat quarterbacks, and even Steve Young, who was only a starter for 9 years, he ends up getting sacked 358 times. So he eclipses that, and yet has 4 fewer years as a starter than the average. And you could just see that is so if anybody says, oh, well, Russ can't be a Hall of Famer because he was sacked too much. Well, that's a component of your dual threat quarterback. Steve Young, John Elway, who was sacked over 500 times, Fran Tarkenton, same amount of times.
Yeah. And, you look also too at the all pros in MVPs, right? And that was one of the things that I think people will bring up the most when they're looking back at Russ's career outside of sacks, as you just went over well.
Yeah. Okay. This is the stat. Of 27 quarterbacks in Canton, Adam, all 27 have either won at least one MVP for the season, received at least one MVP vote, or earned at least one all-pro first team. And so when you look at, obviously Steve Young has that, who was multiple-time MVP, multiple-time all-pro. Tarkenton had the one amazing year in 1975. Elway had that year in 1987 where he won MVP, but he didn't win all-pro, which went to Joe Montana that year. It was Joe Montana and Jerry Rice who ended up kind of splitting second and third place for MVP, and John Elway then able to have the most MVP votes, as I think it did hurt their candidacy, just the fact that Joe Montana, Jerry Rice, both having amazing seasons in 87.
Yeah, without question. And think about that era of football, though, like late 80s through the 90s. How many truly great quarterbacks were there in the league? Montana, Elway, Marino.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Like you kind of start to peter out on, like,
Boomer Esiason was up there,
not
but
a truly great player. Not like a great player. Right.
Yeah, Phil Simms up there too in the mid to late 80s.
He was delightfully mediocre average. Like right. I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of love for.
I'm just trying to name the guys who were not quite Hall of Fame, but were on the edges there.
Right. And I mean, maybe you could talk about Favre a little bit during
Cunningham.
that time. The late. Again, good. Like, I don't know. I don't think of those players as like all-time greats. Now think about like 2010s during Russ's heyday. Yeah. Like you got Tom, you got Mahomes. I mean, you could just keep on going.
You got Drew Brees,
Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, right. And he never got an MVP vote. Okay, like totally different eras with a totally different level of competition. Ben Roethlisberger, yeah.
Well, Ben never had, and that was one of the interesting names that I came across, because if you take these stats into account, that they never won an MVP or never even had at least one MVP vote or earned at least one All-Pro first team, Big Ben never had any of those things. So
yeah, and he's a Hall of Famer for sure.
I think he'll get into the Hall of Fame. Eli Manning never had any of those things, and in fact, he was never even. I think Eli Manning has maybe had 4 Pro Bowls in his NFL career, so he was rarely considered one of the top quarterbacks in the league. It's just that he beat Tom Brady and won MVP of those 2 Super Bowls on his way to beating Tom Brady twice, and that ends up being kind of his claim to potential Hall of Fame candidacy.
Eli Manning and Joe Flacco are the same guy to me.
Yeah,
like got hot once or twice in the playoffs, but otherwise each and every year, they're somewhere between the 10th and 15th best quarterback in the league throughout their career. Did you fear Eli Manning when you went up against him and Eli Manning faced? Like, no,
it was the defense that helped win those. And that's why I don't think you can take Super Bowl MVPs into account even.
No,
because he was the guy who made the passes, but there just weren't any moments defensively that I think stood out for the Giants that allowed them to have that defensive MVP, similar to what we saw from the Seahawks defenses that helped win those Super Bowls.
Oh, without question. But as I look over these stats, Brandon, the one that stands out to me, and I think this is the most important stat by far when you talk about defining Russell Wilson's legacy, 114 interceptions in 12 years as a starter.
Right.
Like, I don't know. Like, look at the other guys on the list. Steve Young had 107. That's less for sure. Started 9 years. Yeah. Right. Russ was a starter for 12. John Elway, like, almost doubles him at 226. Fran absolutely doubles him at 266. Right.
Right.
And this is the part of Russ's game that is never talked about, is underappreciated, and is really, again, to me, the most important thing. He was so incredibly efficient at the quarterback position and was able to push the ball down the field and make big plays and take risks and play outside the box and color outside the lines. and yet was still responsible with the football the entire time throughout his career until his last couple years when, you're just trying to make things happen to stay in the league. Fine. With that said, this is what makes a quarterback great. This is like being able to push the envelope while not hurting your team. And I think it's the most impressive stat of his entire list of accomplishments. And if that doesn't make him a Hall of Famer, then they need to find a new board of people who vote for Hall of Fame. They do.
Yeah, they do. And I want to talk a little bit more about the MVP voting because, for one, MVP voting, it didn't start beyond. You didn't have. You could only vote for who you thought should be first place. It wasn't until 2022 that they changed it to where you voted on first through fifth place. And so the MVP vote really had to be the guy that you thought was the number one most valuable player in all those years leading up to 2022. And so the other part that I would look at would be Offensive Player of the Year, because if you look at the two seasons where Russ would have been considered in the MVP voting, he was going up against dudes who were doing things that really had never been done in the NFL before. So it was that 2019 season where Lamar Jackson had all 50 of the 50 MVP votes because what did he throw for? A boatload of touchdowns and then had the rushing record. He ran for over 1,000 yards as quarterback. Crazy season for Lamar. Got all 50 votes. Russ did get one vote for Offensive Player of the Year, at least in that season. The other year was 2015 when Cam Newton was doing crazy Cam Newton things. Also, a ton of touchdowns. I think that was the year he took the Panthers to the Super Bowl and lost. But his MVP season, 48 of the 50 votes. The only two people that got votes that year, it was kind of crazy because Tom Brady got one MVP vote. Carson Palmer got one MVP vote. Yet both of those quarterbacks had fewer votes than Russ did in Offensive Player of the Year voting, where Russell Wilson got 7 Offensive Player of the Year votes. So he got 7 in 2015. He got an Offensive Player of the Year vote in 2019, and then he got one also in that year, 2013.
And let's not get it twisted. Back in the day when Russ was playing, there was always this undercurrent of Russell Wilson, like, not necessarily hate, but like just diminishing everything that he was and what he'd done. Like, just as, oh, I don't know, he just gets lucky all the time. Oh, he just played with a great coach. Oh, he just played with a great defense. And everybody kind of dismissed Russell Wilson along the way, or not everybody, but there's a large portion of the media that really felt that way. They didn't really look at him as a real quarterback because he didn't stand in the pocket like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. He didn't, have that initial wow factor of like somebody like Patrick Mahomes, right? Who came in towards the tail end of his prime. And they're just always, and then also let us not forget, he played in Southeast Alaska, and we all know nobody gives a crap about us out here in Seattle with the Seahawks, and that hurt him as well. And look, the whole MVP didn't get a vote thing and all that. I've never given a shit about MVPs. Like, I really haven't. It's just same with basketball too. Like, I just don't care. Like, I really don't. And it's more of popularity in a lot of ways and all of that, or, the guy who showed you the newest, greatest whiz bang thing, like Cam Newton or Lamar Jackson, right? Like, gets everybody titillated and excited. Okay, fine. But this whole MVP thing didn't even get one vote to get you a Hall of Famer. You can take that and shove it right up your ass. I just think it's a stupid argument. Well,
it's going to be a stupid argument. And so everybody's making that argument now because it's convenient to throw that out at Russ to keep him out of the Hall of Fame. But they're not going to be able to do that with Ben Roethlisberger. So once Russ's time comes around, there will be a quarterback who has missed on all those categories and yet had similar types of accomplishments. Are they going to point to the fact that, Ben had 2 championship wins where Russ only had 1. Okay, but it's not.
Yeah.
You're not breaking precedent at that point by allowing Russell Wilson into the Hall of Fame because he didn't have anything in those 3 categories.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And like Russ was 1 throw away from winning 2 and went to 2. Like, let's not forget that. And also Ben's first one, that was on the back of the defense and Jerome Bettis.
Right.
Like, it really was. I mean, he was a young player. Like, that's okay. I'm not trying to take anything away from him there. But the idea that like Ben and Russ are in 2 different leagues of some kind just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yep.
Plus, Ben held on for like 4 years too damn long. That like that's one of the things everybody holds against. Well, if it wasn't for the last few years, he would have been a Hall of Famer. Like, oh, okay, I guess like when you keep playing, like that just deletes what you've done before. So like when I look through the stats and I look at that ring and I look at the run that he was on and how great of a player that he was while he was in time to Seattle, I guess that didn't happen. Like when you go and you play poorly somewhere else, it just makes it go away. And let's not forget too, Ben Roethlisberger damn near lost to the Cardinals in a Super Bowl. To the Cardinals.
Right. Yeah, that was his 1 Super Bowl victory. It does, though. I think it plays into some of the mindset of it because all 3 of these guys that are up on the screen with Russ did finish their careers strong. You go back. I mean, Steve Young, he didn't start the first years of his career because he was behind Joe Montana and
was stuck in Tampa before that.
He was stuck in Tampa before that. So he didn't have an opportunity to play by the time, his year 38, or by the time he was 38, that was kind of when he was in the final seasons of his career and being a running quarterback. Yeah, he couldn't, that would be the one comparison where like all these guys kind of made it to their 38-year-old season where Russ ended up not being able to play that long in terms of longevity. But Fran Tarkenton's early seasons with the Vikings weren't that great. He got traded to the New York Giants, and it wasn't until he went back to the Vikings that he then ended up putting a lot of those Hall of Fame stamps on his career to where he only had 1 winning season with the Vikings before he went to the Giants. I think he had 1 winning season with the Giants, and then it was those years that he went back and he got his MVP season, his all-pro season, to where he hit some of those milestones to where they were winning and going to the playoffs at least. John Elway, going into his final 2 seasons, had never won a Super Bowl, so he finished strong with his. And Steve Young just had an amazing 9 seasons as a quarterback once he started starting with that 49ers team. He's the last great Niners quarterback.
That's a true fact. It really is. And, you think about Elway, like getting his championships at the end, that probably, I guess that probably didn't really cement his Hall of Fame. I think he was a Hall of Famer before that.
Yeah.
Just because he drug a terrible Broncos team to the Super Bowl multiple times and had lost. Also, too, the only person that has a better win-loss record as a starter in the Super Bowl is Steve Young, and that's because he only started 1.
Right. Yeah, I did put a little asterisk next to Steve Young's 3-time Super Bowl champ list there because he was only responsible as the starting quarterback for 1 of those 3. Yeah, he backed up Joe Montana for the other 2.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting. The Hall of Fame debate will rage on, but I think one of the things that when we go back and look at it, and I think this is the most important thing. So if you're talking to anybody about this, I think this is what you bring up. There was at least 3 to 5 years there where Russell Wilson was one of the 3 most feared quarterbacks in the league in terms of you go in there, like he's just going to pull it out of his ass. Like he's going to figure it out and they're going to win somehow because Russ is going to do some crazy shit and it's all going to come together for them. And it's true. And I think that's how I kind of measure if a person's a Hall of Fame player as a whole, not just quarterback, but for any position. Do I view you as a top 3 to 5 guy for 3 to 5 years? during your era. And Russ is absolutely that guy. And to kind of put a fine point on that is the top 100. Like, it started right about when Russ came into the league, right? That the players voted on. And the players actually took it serious for, the first few years. But he made the top 100 his rookie year at 50, was never below 25 throughout his time as a Seahawk, I believe. And then only dropped to 61 after he was traded to the Broncos. Like, okay. So after he,
so it was the year that he got hurt. Aaron Donald broke his finger.
That's right. And he had ascended all the way in 2020 to number 2 in the league of all the players, not just quarterbacks, of all the players. And I just want to go back and check. Was Tom Brady still playing? He was. Was Pat Mahomes still? Yeah. Like, the big time guys were still there in 2020. And that's how people thought of Russ during that time frame. So
top 50 in the NFL every year.
Top 25 almost every year.
Okay. 50 the rookie year.
Yeah, except for his rookie year and then his first year at the Broncos. And then obviously things tailed off after that. But that's an incredible run for a player.
See Mike Spin Move out on X mentioned this. I was curious about your take because the finger injury that he sustained, that throw where his finger hit Aaron Donald coming in, and I wonder how much that impacted just the rest of his career. Because obviously his mobility was being reduced then toward that part of his career. But I think back to what you've talked about with Kurt Warner and his finger injury and not being able to grip the football. And he even he started wearing a glove to help with his grip strength. And that kind of revitalized his time when he went to Arizona. I wonder how much that had an impact on Russ and his ability to play quarterback.
Yeah, with Kurt, it was the thumb. But Russ, was it his index finger? I think it was, right? On his throwing hand.
Yeah, it was either index or ring.
Right. And I mean, those are your last two fingers to have contact with the ball as you're letting it go. And I do think that it affected his accuracy a titch. But if we want to talk about why Russ's career seemed to go downhill so quickly, because think about it. In 2020, he was thought of as the second best player in the league by his peers.
Right. Behind Lamar Jackson.
In 2 years. Yeah. He had one more year in Seattle and then was traded to the Broncos in March of 2022. We all know how it went in Denver and then subsequently after that. And I think there's two big reasons that this happened. One is we had mentioned earlier in the pod that Russ wasn't like Lamar fast or Vic fast or anything like that, but he was just fast enough to be outside of everybody's reach and at all times, and was, had enough jitterbug and, just quicks to him to be able to get out of things. And it just took losing 10% of that to make him very mortal. But I think the second reason, and I think this is probably the biggest reason, Brandon, I'm curious to see if you agree with this. Starting in about 2020, the league changed. Vic Fangio and the two high shells and all of that really started to come into vogue. Think about Russell Wilson and all the moon balls and the way that he played. He was a great play action quarterback who was able to push the ball down the field. And he did a lot of that against single high stuff and being able to take on one-on-ones on the outside and be able to, place those throws with the beautiful moon balls. And teams decided at some point right around that 2020 time, we're not going to have that anymore. Yeah. We're not going to let you get over the top on everything. And so we're going to make you dink and dunk your way. And that really hurt Russell Wilson. So losing a little bit of the athleticism and then having the league shift to take away one of his biggest assets of being accurate down the field really was the beginning of the end for Russ, I believe.
Yeah, that's a good point, because when we talk about kind of the way that Russ changed the game during his era, the read option was such a big part of that early on. And he had the athleticism not only to run around in some of those plays like we showed earlier, but then also to make defenses play that edge to where and have to drop the safety down into the box to where, yeah, if you played too high safety early on in Russ's career, you would get just jellied to death because and that's how that would have impacted. And then so yeah, once in 2020 came around and you could play, you saw defenses playing more too high, then yeah, the threat of Russ running and keeping the football on the edge, it wasn't there anymore.
Yeah. And then by, playing more too high too, you've got another safety that's out there with his eyes, like looking into the backfield and watching for those scrambles. And, by that time too, people had kind of figured out the Russell Wilson offense. I mean, we talked about this a lot, in the last few years of his time in Seattle. And then as he went to Denver and invoked the Let's Ride curse. But, basically Russ had a hard time embracing the idea that I might be the greatest play action quarterback to ever do it. And to be that, I need the run game, and it's going to be more deep shots. And he talked about Drew Brees so many times throughout interviews and stuff. And it's like, yes, you both were on the shorter end of things. Not a lot to compare after that. Like, your games are completely different. And he always wanted to be thought of as that surgical guy out of the pocket and a pinpoint passer that way. That's just not what he was. And I feel like if he had still embraced what he was as a quarterback and just be great at what you're great at, he might have done better even in his time in Denver.
Yeah. Toward the tail end of Seattle, that was the one thing that I think as fans we got to be the most frustrated with was, though he still had the mobility to escape, the willingness to check down wasn't there. He still wanted to go for the big play. And then the run game, it wasn't there after Marshawn left. And because, you had Rawls for the one season, then he got hurt, and they never had a strong run game post LOB era. They never had that Marshawn Lynch bell cow style back that I think that if you would have complemented Russ's game with that, he didn't have that in Denver. He didn't have that in Pittsburgh even, or even with New York. So, maybe if they would have actually played him with Scatabo before Bo got hurt, or Cam got hurt, then maybe that would have changed things. But they had moved on to Jackson Dart, and then Cam did get hurt.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Brandon. I mean, when Marshawn was gone, you had spurts of good running games, right? Like
little Chris Carson here and there, yeah.
And then Chris Carson, and yeah, you can go out. Even Penny had a couple, little spurts there where he was pretty good, but it was never consistent. The offensive line was a dumpster fire. Once they went to Waldron, like, they had terrible offensive coordinating at that point.
He only had 1 year with Waldron. He had 2 years with Shoddy. But I also think it was just a little bit too late in his career to, I don't know. Shoddy just didn't seem like late in the career. That's why there was this argument, for Let Russ Cook, the Let Russ Cook movement starting. Yeah. It coincided kind of with Bevel going out, Shoddy coming in, and just kind of the way the NFL was through that late part of the 2010s, right? It was a lot of heavy passing, but the Seahawks didn't have the offensive line for it, and maybe not the coaching for it, because that was, again, the argument was should we move on to a different coach, like a guy like Sean Payton, and really pair him with Russ to where he can get the most out of Russ in terms of the passing part of his game. And that never really materialized.
I never did.
Never got to see it.
I remember that era, Brandon, while we were doing the podcast, and I fucking hated the Let Russ Cook crowd. It was so stupid, and it proved out to be stupid. And most of them were the stat nerds. Most of them were the people that loved that, Chiefs Rams game in Mexico City that was 89 to 91 or whatever the final score was, where no defense was played. They're the ones who decided that defense didn't matter and running the football was for dinosaurs, right? Like they called Pete Carroll all the time. Like they just rode this spread them out, throw the ball all over the field. If your quarterback doesn't have 5,000 yards and he ain't worth a shit. Catfish. I couldn't stand these people. I really couldn't. Still can't. And it proved out. Like if they had just embraced what Russ is as a great quarterback and ran the football, ran play action, you may have had another chance at more success in the playoffs. Right, than what they ended up having.
The tough part through that era, though, was that they really didn't have the defense to
play with that style.
Yeah, to play that style and to complement. It wasn't complementary to the way that the offense played, and so that's why it felt during that era that we just needed to score a lot more points and to give our defense a shot, because this was post. You think about 2018, the only two starters remaining from the Super Bowl team on defense were Bobby Wagner and KJ Wright.
Gosh, yeah, that's true. And look, you can score a ton of points playing ball the way that we just talked about. I mean, didn't the Seahawks lead the league in scoring like this last year or whatever it was?
Yeah.
I don't know. They have some nice offensive numbers from this last year.
They're at least top five, probably even top two. I think they might have just been behind the Rams.
Okay, maybe that's the case. But you can be prolific playing football the right way and, putting up big numbers. And it'd be like taking Sam and being like, okay, we're just going to put you in gun all the time, spread them out, and you just read it. He'd probably be a little better at it than Russ because he has the height and a little better vision, especially over the middle of the field. But he'd struggle that way too. He's another great play action quarterback and plays well off the threat of the run. And I don't understand why people fight this. I don't know why people take the greatness away from the quarterbacks that played that way as if that's an illegitimate way to be great at quarterback. I do not get it. I really think it's fantasy football brained stat nerds that think about EPA as like the holy grail of everything that can't figure out that it's a more than a legitimate way of playing quarterback. I think it's the way quarterback was meant to be.
Yeah. Well, I think it's starting to come back a little bit now that defenses have found a way to stop those high-powered offenses that we saw for where it was just solely leaning on the passing game. Yeah. And now that's come back to where I think we remember football being before that era.
Yeah, and the cool part is with Sean McVay inventing 13 personnel. Now we're back to running heavy formation. So thanks a lot to the gel.
Yeah. Well, see, Russ has changed the game in a couple different ways and been through a couple different eras now. After the break, Adam, I do want to talk about another part where not just off the field, but also on the field where Russ has changed the game a little bit.
I love it, man. And man, an hour and 18 into this already since we hit record. And I feel like we could talk about Russ for another hour before getting to the second half of the show. But I'm looking forward to getting to some of the off-field stuff because I feel like, to me, Brandon, that's where people have some of their biggest problems with Russ.
Oh, yeah. Buckle up. There's lots more to talk about. This is going to be a full show, people.
All right, here we go.
Getting into the second half of the show, and Adam, there were many things that happened on the field with Russ, but there were some things that happened off the field with Russ that I think, as we look at this comprehensive part of his career, there were off-field things that impacted the show as well.
For sure, and this is where I think the majority of the criticism comes for Russ. And the interesting part, Brandon, is I want to ask you a few questions. Was he ever arrested?
No.
Did he, was he ever accused of doing anything awful to ladies or anything like that?
No, or kids.
No, none of that. was he ever suspended for like, things that he was doing? Was he ever accused of being like just a terrible leader of men?
No.
Was he always all in?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So as we go through the off-field moments that people give him catfish about, like, just keep that in perspective.
But they're part. Some of these are fun, and some of these are definitely things that we've focused on. I wanted to go beyond the off-field stuff and really take the top 5 moments off the field that I think impacted this show based on what connected with us and our listeners, and maybe mostly us. But I have up on the screen Russ holding the edible bread. That's not one of these things, but it did. That was one of the components of his thing. Between nanobubbles and selling football-shaped bread, those are some of the things that rub people the wrong way.
Yeah, for sure. And just the press conferences and the positivity.
The positivity. He was overly positive. Nobody in real life can be that positive.
Yeah, except for Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, who are literally that person. Like, and I mean, if we're going through these 5 things, that literally helped change my life at a time that I needed that. Like, I'm not even joking.
So number 5, Adam.
Number 5B. Yeah, I don't know.
But this is what I want to get to.
Okay.
This is the thing, the 5 things that impacted this show the most. Number 5, Mr. Unlimited.
An alter ego.
Unlimited.
His name's Mr. Unlimited. Yeah, you got to be unlimited. You got to have a thought process of being unlimited. So when people ask you, what you're thinking about or what you want to do in life or where you want to go, you got to be unlimited. Tell them I'm unlimited.
Got to be unlimited, Adam. That's Mr. Unlimited. One of the top moments that really I think back to of his off-field things that impacted the show. It had to be, you had to put Mr. Unlimited in there.
I don't know how you put it at 5 because the impact was unlimited. Like, look, here's the thing too. Like, this was probably, of all of the Russ off the field stuff, maybe my least favorite thing. Like, was the Mr. Unlimited of everything. With that said, it's just the delivery. Like, if he was doing this little TikTok or whatever the hell it was that he was doing.
Yeah, this was before TikTok. This was still when we were using Twitter.
Sure. Okay. And he was like, hey, if you want to get to the next level and everything, you got to think of yourself as being unlimited, but instead, Mr. Unlimited, like, just the delivery sucked. And that's what made it so mean.
It wouldn't have got the traction if it didn't have the delivery. Nope. Most of us would have glossed over it otherwise. Just like this next one, if not for the delivery and I guess this leaked footage, Adam, number 4 inspired, I believe, the Let's Ride curse.
Broncos country, let's ride.
Broncos country, let's ride. Broncos country, let's ride. Broncos country, let's ride.
Not part of the Seahawks tenure, but just after, and obviously led into our Let's Ride curse season.
It sure did, and I want to thank Russ for inspiring me to come up with the Let's Ride curse, and I'm sorry that I put it on him. I honestly thought it would come off after a year. I didn't realize that it would kind of be the end of things. But, he took a lot of heat for this one, too. And again, it's like, have you ever been to a photo shoot or something along those lines, of production, video production shoot? Like, he was in there. It's literally what you do. Like, you do multiple takes of the same thing in different ways until you find the thing that fits. And everybody's going to make fun of him about it as if, it came off like canned or corny or whatever. It's like, that's how it's done, son. And it takes all the crap for it.
Well, I think the reason why he does too is because he had the Go Hawks thing at the end of his press conference for all the years in Seattle. And so he didn't necessarily have to have a catchphrase when he made he could have just dropped it. He could have ended press conferences normally and not had a thing that he said at the end of everything. But because he had become known for the Go Hawks thing, I think that this was somehow, at least in part, on him, because he had to have his thing at the end.
Yeah. If he had dropped the Broncos country part and if he just ended it with "Let's ride" each press conference, it probably would have been a little different. It was the Broncos country part that really bothered me. Maybe because just, screw the Broncos forever.
All right. Number 3. It was his contract year in the offseason of 2019. And we got this gem that was released online as Russell Wilson announcing that he's staying with the Seahawks.
Hey, Seattle, we got a deal.
Go Hawks.
The only thing better than this was, and one of the reasons why it deserves to be on this list is because you had Tyler Lockett and the other offensive lineman that played the part of Sierra recreating it.
I'd forgotten about that. That was funny.
DJ
Fluker,
yes.
Yeah. No, that was
All-timer.
great. Look, hey, again, people gave him crap about this one, but I will say this. I always wondered what it was like to snuggle in bed with Ciara. Like, I got to look at that. Like, it was like, yeah, that looks like it'd be pretty sweet. Also, too, when that video came out, I was freaking elated that we had to deal with Russell Wilson. Like, you can say that that's stupid and cringy and all that stuff as much as you want. I was like, hell yeah, brother. Like, we still have Russ.
We did. And, okay, so up until this point, I've actually not had any moments where it was Russ promoting something like I have with the image of Russ and the bread ball. So, number 2, and the reason why this is still part of our lingo as Seahawks fans today, we still quote this particular video and Russell Wilson promoting the Danger Witch.
You want to split this Subway sandwich? It is my signature sandwich. It's called the Danger Witch, and it's dangerously good. Be careful, though. It's spicy.
It's spicy.
It never gets old. It never gets old. Yes, you're right. This has become a part of our lexicon as fans for sure. Careful all the time. Like, we use it on the pod and all of that. I'm not going to defend Russ as much on this one because he was a Bronco at the time. And, there's certain things that are so bad in the moment that, like, it gets panned, but then, like, 20 years later, like, kind of comes back around. It feels like, the careful, it's spicy little clip here has kind of come around to just being hilarious.
Well, the whole thing about that, too, so this was created on TikTok, and it was created. Russell Wilson was promoting people to splice this up and try and do like weird things in between the takes. So really, this was part of a marketing campaign that ended up being very successful. It got over 1 million views on TikTok, and that's pretty incredible that it did. While cringy, it also inspired some video that probably paid Subway off very nicely for the amount of traction that it ultimately got.
I would think so. They crap canned the sandwich awful quick though. Like, I remember it being out of stores like in a hurry. But
yeah. Well, I don't even think it was an on the menu type item. You had to go and or like that was part of it, is that it was an off menu item that you had to suddenly say, I want the Danger Witch.
Well, it does kind of point to, I think, one of the biggest problems with this off-field stuff was the people are out Team 3. Like, this was a Team 3 creation. You're like, do we need that? We don't.
All right. Number 1 was a clip that we ended up playing on a lot of Russell Wilson highlights because, and this was a clip that was created by or helped produced by TD, who was a longtime producer of the Dave Dameshek football program. He ended up coming on the show, I think, around the time of the second Super Bowl, and we talked about how he was behind the scenes getting Russ to say this line.
Hey, I'm Russell Wilson.
and I throw a sexy deep ball.
That one stuck.
It did stick. And probably the most used clip of Russell Wilson saying something off the field that we then incorporated into Russell Wilson highlights whenever he would throw a sexy deep ball.
Yeah, I think you're dead on with that being number one as impactful for the show. And I think probably why it resonated was it felt, especially for young Russ, like so out of character, right?
Yeah.
The squeaky clean, religious, all of it, right? And throw a sexy deep ball. Like, but
it was the thing that he was ended up being most proud of, I think, in his career. Like, he felt as though his deep ball really was the signature part of his game.
It really was a huge part of it. And the way he could turn the ball over on that deep stuff is really top 3 of all time, probably. Like, if you really started lining up the best deep balls of all time. I think what made I throw a sexy deep ball go away, though, is Collinsworth, and when he started calling them moon balls.
Yes. And then Russ did adopt the moon ball terminology, too.
Yeah, he did. But, yeah, hilarious stuff.
All right. Another aspect of where Russ changed the game on the field is for the sub 6 foot, 1.5 inch quarterbacks. And I have up on the screen here a list of all of the sub 6 foot, 1.5 inch quarterbacks since 2012. Because as we mentioned, we kicked off this show talking about how Russ being drafted in the 3rd round, even being drafted in the 3rd round was considered high for Russell Wilson because they didn't think that he was going to be any more than a starting quarterback or any more than a backup quarterback. And so to waste a 3rd round pick on somebody who isn't even going to start for you, that seemed silly at the time. So, but one of the things that changed was after Russ came into the NFL, had success as a 5'11" inch quarterback or 5'10" and 5/8 or whatever he actually is, then you started to see other quarterbacks starting to get drafted behind him. If not for Russell Wilson, does Baker Mayfield go number 1 in the 2018 draft? Does Kyler Murray go number 1 in the 2019 draft? Does Bryce Young get drafted number 1 overall in the, 2022 draft? Yeah, 2022. I don't think any of those things happen. And you see here the Pro Football Focus grades for each one of these short quarterbacks. Russell Wilson at the top, 94.3 with nearly 14,000 snaps, and behind him at 91.2 with only 3,300 snaps is Brock Purdy. Jalen Hurts up there. The only 3 quarterbacks in this category to have a PFF grade over 90.
Yeah, and Russ is the king of this group by a country mile. It's not even close. And, it's interesting you asked, would Baker be drafted 1? I would say yes, because the Browns are idiots. Would Kyler be drafted 1? Maybe, only because Kingsbury had loved Kyler forever, right?
Sure.
And the Josh Rosen experience was so awful that they wanted to get rid of that as soon as possible. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that Jalen Hurts gets drafted in the 2nd like he did. I don't think Tua gets the look that he did in the league and the tank for Tua talk and all that going in. Malik Willis, he got drafted where he ought to have gotten drafted.
Sure.
Just because, coming out of, what tiny school did he come out of? I can't remember off the top of my head, but he was going to be a long work in progress and all of that. But I don't know that all these guys would have the path to the field as quickly as they have without Russell Wilson. I think it would have been harder for them to prove it to a coach in camp, all that stuff, without Russ's impact on the league.
Yeah, and there were other short quarterbacks, too, that were drafted that aren't on this list, like Johnny Manziel, drafted in the 1st round. And the Manziel fact, let's see. Oh, he actually came before Mahomes. So I think he hurt Mahomes' draft prospects more than helping. But I think part of the reason why he got drafted so high, too, was, again, being short. And people saw like that Russell Wilson potential in him.
Yeah, maybe true. Look, I look at this list, too, and there's 2 Super Bowls on this list between Hurts and Wilson. There's also a Super Bowl loser in this group and Brock Purdy. So that's kind of fun to see.
Yeah. Those are the three guys that are in the top three. Mm-hmm. And you see probably Caleb's the one guy who I think has a shot. He's probably the most, in terms of the clutchiness fourth quarter factor of any of these guys on the list that you could, and Hurts he could play clutch in the playoffs, but Caleb, I think, has that. He has a little bit of that in him.
Maybe. We've seen some of it, and I'm super annoyed with Caleb, like, anointing himself as, like, the Iceman in year 2 and, like, all of that stuff. Like, stop it, dude. Like, you've barely done shit in this league, and your first year was awful. It was awful. Like, don't get it twisted.
Hey, he has one good year.
He's lucky.
He makes it into the playoffs, and now he's on the cover of Madden.
Yeah, I know. That's a choice a person could make. Look, Caleb got super lucky that Ben Johnson came to his rescue, because he was going to need that sort of coach, a McVay, Andy Reid, Ben Johnson type, to be able to corral the wildness that is Caleb Williams. So in terms of like the clutchiness and all that, does he have a bit of that on his resume so far? Yes, he does. Yes, he does. Do I need to see a lot more before I'm like, oh yeah, he's one of the clutchiest guys in the league? Oh, hell yes. Yeah.
All right, Adam. Well, people that I know are a clutch factor in making this podcast work. It's our executive producers, DCH, Ryan Peterson, Brian Shaw, JC Schilling in the 313th, as well as Stephen Kirkpatrick. And we've got one person coming in and as part of episode 503. It is Quentin Ramirez with a $12.60 donation. Quentin says, a little late to the party, but I had to show some support to the crew behind the best Seahawks content out there. Thanks for all the work you guys put in, and what a season. Let's run it back. Go Hawks, from Quentin.
Go Hawks, other Clinton. Yeah.
Quentin.
Appreciate that a ton. Oh, Quentin. Okay. Yeah. Very good.
With a Q.
I love it, man. Yeah. That's cooler than a Clinton by a lot.
By a lot.
But yeah, man, let's run this thing forward. Let's go.
Yeah. I see you've embraced the terminology. We're not running it back. We're running it forward, right? Do you feel like that's important?
Yes. Yeah. Like, let's get on board. Let's get the messaging. Let's get our mentals right, as Marshawn would say. And I think it is a big thing in terms of promoting Coach Mike's views and his approach and his genius. I think adopting the terminology helps to kind of get it out there, as he continues to be grossly overlooked as one of the greatest coaches in this league right now.
I think that it does seem like such a subtle change, and his interview with 710, it's like he was kind of wondering why they're making a big deal at all about using run it forward versus running it back. But I think it does somewhat recognize that, well, you can't run it back because this isn't going to be the same team as the previous season. This is going to be a new team, but it's going to continue to build then off of what happened in previous years. So even though it is subtle, I think it does make a little bit of a difference in terms of it recognizes a difference in mentality.
I think so. I think one of the biggest things about Russ's and Pete's tenure together was their messaging in the way that they talked about all sorts of things. I mean, Russ and the why not us and separations in the preparation, and, Pete always compete and win forever in all of that stuff, and the positivity. Like, that is what your culture is. And I think Mike's done an incredible job of establishing his own, and this group seems to embrace it. And I do think running it forward, it is subtle and it is small, but I think it's honestly pretty brilliant, because it does put you in the mindset of not like sitting back and waiting and resting on your laurels. It's like, we got to go get something. It's still chasing an edge, like Mike likes to say. So sure. I like it.
Well, and we've got a couple of emails, starting with one from Colin, JC, Holly, and Dominic. We've got a minute. Yeah, it has been a minute. Says, hey guys, we just wanted to send an email to congratulate you on your 500th episode and let you know we are still listening to the podcast and supporting on Patreon, getintheflock.com. We are pleased that the podcast is going from strength to strength with all the new delivery channels and content. How time flies. It only seems like yesterday, episode 18, I think, when Adam advised Holly to dump her boyfriend and arranging for a romantic weekend in Rome over Super Bowl weekend. You very kindly recorded a video message apologizing for this, which I used in the father of the bride speech at their wedding. We are pleased to report that in February, Holly and Dominic were blessed with a little flocker who they have named Eric. Eric is fortunate in having only experienced a world in which the Seahawks are world champions. We are hoping this happy situation continues, at least until he starts school. We have very fond memories of hosting you during the Seahawks visit to London in 2018, of the bus tour through London, of the 12s photobombing Buckingham Palace, and meeting fellow flockers in the pub before the game. You have created an international community of Seahawks fans and should be very proud of your achievements. It is still on our bucket list to get over to Seattle for a game, not least because we still owe Lisa and Greg Carlson a dinner. Here's to the next 500 episodes. Go Hawks, Colin, JC, Holly, Dominic, and Eric.
Go Hawks to the family stringer, man. Again, been with us from the very beginning, and it's been cool to be, a little part of their life. And when we were over in London, it was awesome hanging with them. It's funny that, they wrote in when they did. We were just watching a show the other day. Oh, yeah, we were watching Ted Lasso, and it's all set over in England, right? And I got to thinking about those guys because they hopped in the car and they're driving on the wrong side of the car, on the wrong side of the road, right? I remember hopping in with Colin into his rig and just feeling weird in that car, like with him on the wrong side. But I was very impressed that apparently most people drive a stick over there like a real person. And that just had me thinking about them. So it's cool to have them right in. And congratulations to Holly with and Dominic with Eric.
Eric coming along, yeah.
Awesome to have a new little flocker. That's awesome.
Did you see that Ted Lasso season 4 has been announced?
Oh, no. We're in season 2. They're starting to kind of like diverge into like backstory plot. I was like, what about the soccer and winning? Like, isn't Ted supposed to be building a team? Like, why are we dealing with panic attacks? And why did this turn into shrinking? Like, it's too much.
Okay. Well, power through it and you'll be rewarded.
Okay.
We've got Josh in Abbotsford. Josh in Abbotsford, British Columbia says, hey guys, I've been listening for your podcast for 5 years now. And with all the talk going on with Myles Garrett, I just have one question. Everyone, especially Alexander Castro, who just wrote an article for Field Goals about it, keeps talking about John Schneider making a move to counter the Garrett trade. The problem I'm having is that all the trades that people seem to propose is Seattle trading for an edge, and I don't see how this solves the Myles Garrett problem. Max Crosby or TJ Watt or Thibodeau aren't going to line up to block Garrett when the natural counter be to trade for a guard. Making a big move for an edge to counter the Myles Garrett trade is like having your neighbor install a huge stereo system and you trying to get peace and quiet by installing a bigger stereo at your house. Wouldn't it make more sense to soundproof your house to deal with the noise? The soundproofing in this situation is the offensive line. Let me know what you think. I'm not really on social media or Discord or anything like that, but just curious to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Keep doing what you do. You guys rock. Go Hawks. From Josh.
Hey, Josh, appreciate that. Love this email, by the way, because, I've heard a lot of this scuttlebutt about the idea of what they need to do to counter the Myles Garrett move. And let's not forget that the Rams are chasing us, right? We all remember that, right? How we're the champions and they're not. They were losers in the NFC Championship game. So they're trying to catch up to us. Maybe Myles Garrett gets them there. Maybe it doesn't. We're about to find out. But in terms of making a move, I don't think that that's what's imperative at all. I don't think that that's what you need to do to counter it. We did a film breakdown of Charles Cross in his matchup a few years back against Myles Garrett. If you want to go check that out, you ought to. And It turns out Charles Cross can block Myles Garrett. He can do it because he's a badass in his own respect. Also, too, like, you want to counter Myles Garrett? Bring in a guy like Brian Fleury to replace Clint Kubiak, who believes in running the football in outside zone. And you run the football at a rusher like that and try to make him earn those opportunities to rush the passer. Thirdly, you want to counter the Myles Garrett move. You know what you do? You keep an offensive line intact, and you keep a great offensive line coach in John Benton in the house, and you keep the system similar. That's exactly what the Seahawks have done. Am I shaking in my boots over Myles Garrett? No. Was it a significant move? Absolutely. Does it narrow the gap? I would imagine it does. But they didn't just buy themselves a Super Bowl, boys and girls, and we don't need to panic move in some sort of weird football Cold War. Like, we just don't have to do it, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree with that.
I like the idea of the football Cold War. Well, the good thing is that as you laid it out, we've done all of the countering by just making the moves that have come naturally. Some of the moves you've had to make just naturally as part of the offseason. I think the idea, though, is that it does kind of seem like an off-season arms race, and the Rams have really been trying to make a lot of those moves, not just with Myles Garrett, but also trying to beef up their defensive back room. And so when you don't get a star name that in response to it, I think that's what people are looking for and are interested in, but I don't know if it's necessary.
No, I'm not interested in winning the headline Super Bowl in June. Like, I don't think that that's all that productive when it's all said and done. We're the better football team. We proved it last year, and the Rams have to come through us. So if they feel like they need to get desperate and become a participant in a football one-sided Cold War, have at it, Haas. You know, F them picks, mortgage your future, do it. Like, let's go. Let's see if you can maximize the last year of your aging quarterback's prime. Let's see if you can do it, because, man, a lot of things have to come together for them for that game to even matter when we get to week 16. And, like, Trent McDuffie's going to have to not actually be over the hill. Watson, the other corner they brought in from the Chiefs, is going to have to play up to a level that clearly the Chiefs didn't think he was worth paying for.
Right.
Like, and Myles Garrett has to come into the NFC and play in a real conference and play against real left tackles instead of beating up on last place schedules in an inferior conference as he has the last few years, and play on a team that's actually got real goals rather than him just going out and chasing numbers as he did with the Browns the last couple of years. Is he a great player? Yes. Yes. Is he Reggie White? Catfish. No, he's not. He's not.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it goes for the second place loser Rams this upcoming season, but I don't think it's enough.
The annoying part is that it did work for the Rams once in getting Matt Stafford and giving up picks to make that move to get them over the hump, because they weren't going to win with the quarterback that they had before. Why am I blanking on his name?
Jared Goff.
Jared Goff. Goof. Because they lost the Super Bowl with Jared Goff, and they need Matt Stafford then. It rarely works out for teams. And just like with the Niners, how they've been able to manage to stay competitive by giving up picks to bring on an aging running back with Christian McCaffrey, giving up multiple picks to draft a quarterback in Trey Lance who never worked out, and then having Brock Purdy fall in their lap at the final pick and him able to manage to counteract giving up all those picks then for Trey Lance and having that move fail spectacularly. It's annoying that those two franchises, because those are both moves that generally end up hurting franchises in the short term and even longer. It
does. And what's interesting too is how many years were the 49ers the preseason Super Bowl champions
yeah.
in the last 10 years, many times, right?
Yeah.
I'm just going back. Let me just look here. Oh yeah, they've won the Super Bowl exactly 0 effing times in this century. Like since we entered the division, they've done diddly catfish. Like screw those guys. And then now we got the Rams. You said sure, they managed to pull it off the one time. And you could go back and look at all of the off-season Super Bowl champions, like the Eagles from a number of years ago, and on and on and on.
Oh yeah, the Bills have a number of off-season Super Bowl championships.
Absolutely. And okay, so the Rams got it to work once. You know what the odds suggest after that? That it's not going to work this time. And Coach Mike's only on the ascent. Sean McVay's been in the league for a long time. We know what Sean is. Like, he is where he's at. And he's already a loser in comparison to Mike McDonald from last season. Mike's above him at this point because he's the current champion. So I look forward to the improvement of our coaching staff under our improving head coach, an offensive line that continues to improve with some continuity that we've never had. Sam Darnold to improve with some continuity that he's never had in his life, like in his football life anyway. This is, and I love too that the media have already crowned. I feel like Denny Green, man. Like when I'm thinking about the Rams this offseason, you want to crown him? Crown him, like go ahead. Like, but this isn't when it's won and lost. This is just, when it's hot and people are in shorts. So congratulations to the Rams on their premature Super Bowl victory lap here that they're taking.
On to do better and better at life.
All right, man. My do better this week is for a whipping boy in the media that I've used for a while now, and that's 12th Man Rising. Like, I don't know how many times these guys have made an appearance in my do better, but this article was written by Lee Vowell, not to be confused with Lee Consonant, and Jalen Milroe's latest showing raises a Seahawks question nobody wanted answered. The article goes on and on, and guess what they don't talk about? Whatever it is that he did in OTAs to cause this article to be written. They just said the quarterback has struggled. And it's like, by what metric? In what way? And by whose determination has it been a struggle? Like, I heard Brock say that he threw one bad interception at the beginning of a red zone period far in yes. Remember when that happened last year with Sam and Mike Salk was on the air like asking Mike McDonald whether or not that affected Sam being the starting quarterback, and now he's Super Bowl champion? Like, this is so catfish ridiculous. And the other part of it is, if you're a young player and you're getting better and you're not the starter, right? Like, you're not the starter. Sam's the starter. This is your opportunity to actually get some reps and work on things, push the envelope on things. If things don't, or try a different part of your mechanics to see if that clicks in. Maybe it doesn't, and you scrap it. Like, this is when you get to do that. So to sit here and judge what Jalen Milroe, who's played all of 4 snaps in the league during the regular season, 3, whatever it is, to decide what he is or isn't based on these OTAs that you don't even give an example of what he's done to make you think that he's going to be terrible and couldn't possibly fix the accuracy issues. Like, stop it with this nonsense. 12th Man Rising, Lee Vowell, do better.
I feel like this is not the first appearance by Lee in the do better segment.
Probably not, man. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to when we actually get to watch him in preseason. I don't expect anything from Milroe in year 2 either. Like, this is Sam's team, unless there's an injury that ends up happening to where then you're having to decide between Drew Lock and Milroe as far as starting time. I think that's the point where you look at addressing that, but we're going to have at least some idea through the preseason of how that competition between Drew and Jalen works out. I like being at a place. This is one thing that we never had during the Russell Wilson era, were multiple quarterbacks backing up the starting quarterback. The years of you just had one guy. It was Geno for a little bit. Before Geno, gosh, who was backing up Russ for some of those other years where you
the running joke was who is Russ's backup? Injured Russell Wilson, right? Yeah.
And there was never any quarterback depth to where if there were any injuries that you were even interested in seeing what the quarterback spot would look like beyond Russ.
Yeah, no kidding. Subtitle to this was "Good guy, but iffy player." It just you can't say that. Like it's making declarations about things that, because there's three things in the world. Like when you look at things that could or could not be true. Like this is the way that I try to reason through things. Things that I believe, which is the lowest form of truth, right? Things that I think are true based on some incomplete data, and things that I know are true, right? And they talk about Jalen Milroe and his development as if they know that he's not going to make it. Like it's been the case since he's come out in the draft. And it's so freaking stupid. Like, think about Jordan Love and his development. Did he look good in camp and stuff in his second year? No, I remember the reports being he was dog water and like, what did they do? And, blah, blah, blah. And now he's a starter and he's a damn good quarterback. Like, why has everybody in this world gotten so catfishing impatient when it comes to allowing a quarterback to develop? It's one of my biggest pet peeves in football. And I think it's one of the biggest things that organizations screw up with doing their thing and building a championship team. Like, give a guy at least 3 years to sit and learn like they used to. And then when you come in, you know what you are? Ready.
Right. Yeah, you don't have to. You do see even former quarterbacks, though, who make the argument that you learn faster by being out there. And
are we in a race?
I don't know, but apparently some teams are.
Look, there's some guys that are wired to come in and start right away. We just did an hour and a half on the front part of the show talking about a guy who was ready when he came in as like a fifth-year guy out of college and played for two different offenses and had a lot of experience, right? Sure. In Russell Wilson. Look, not every dude, not every prospect at quarterback that comes in the league is that way. Like, in fact, that's super rare.
Yeah.
And I hear that argument all the time, Brandon, of, well, you can't learn anything sitting on the bench. Then why do we practice anything ever? It's the dumbest catfishing argument I've ever heard. I hate it. It makes me furious, man. Like, yes, you can learn things in practice. In fact, that's where you're supposed to learn. That's why they call it practice.
I also don't understand the push to get Milroe out there and even include him as part of the offense. We had a few snaps in year one, and I think that was, while there were maybe still some lingering questions about what Sam would be able to do long-term with this team. But after winning a Super Bowl, who I don't want to see on the field is Jalen Milroe in year two. Like, he can continue to learn behind Sam Darnold until, we can get even more years down the road and decide that, okay, now do we have... are we to a point to where there is some sort of competition here that we need to concern ourselves with? And year two, coming off a year where Sam has won a Super Bowl, is not that time to me.
It's not. And look, to go back to that time period last year, I was one of the biggest doubting Darnolds out there by far. Like, sure. No doubt about it. I even predicted at some point in the offseason that we'd see Milroe by the end of the year after Sam couldn't reproduce what he did in Minnesota. And I guess I was right on that. He couldn't reproduce that. He actually did better and won a Super Bowl. So, yeah, I don't understand the rush to get him out on field. I don't understand the rush of people in terms of like, well, hey, maybe he could play a little running back or he could do this. This is not Terrell Pryor. Like, Stop it with that stuff. Do you want him to develop as a quarterback? Because I do, because we're going to have some interesting decisions to make when Sam Darnold asks for not a mid-tier contract, but an upper echelon contract that then really does hurt your team building, which John Schneider completely learned when he dealt with Russ's bigger contracts towards the back half of his time in Seattle. Is he going to want to go down that road? I don't know. But at the end of the day, just chill. Let Milroe be. Like, he's going to work on his craft. And I promise you, by the end of year 3, he's going to be better significantly than he was when he came in as a rookie. He will.
It's how practice works.
Practice? Talking about practice?
My do better this week is for, I'm not going to give this to Michael Haney of Sports Illustrated because I don't know if Michael writes the headlines to his articles or if he has some ghost headline writer, sub-headline writer. But the title of the headline is Hall of Fame voters prefer Russell Wilson over Eli Manning. You know what? That could have been the headline. You could have stopped there. But then you got a little M dash and it says, but do they have it right? 5 of 8 Hall of Fame voters picked Wilson over Manning in a new poll. Only 8 total voters. But anyway, 2 Super Bowl rings and 37 game-winning drives makes Eli's case harder to dismiss than the numbers.
No.
Exactly.
It's not. It's not hard to dismiss.
No. The 5 Hall of Fame of the 8 have it right. 3 have it wrong. We've gone through the numbers and 37 game-winning drives. Oh, we just looked at that. If you include, if you look at fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives, Russ has eclipsed Eli Manning in those numbers as well. 40 game-winning drives in Russell Wilson's career over a shorter time span, having more success year after year. Doubled him up in terms of the number of Pro Bowl accomplishments and winning seasons, has more winning seasons overall than Eli Manning. The one place where Eli has the numbers over Russ, it's Super Bowl wins over Tom Brady, and that's it.
Yeah. And look, I mean, Eli even had over Peyton for a minute there, like more Super Bowl rings than Peyton before the corpse of Peyton Manning won his second chip, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And would you ever dare to say that Peyton Manning's better than Eli or Eli's better than Peyton? No, you never would. It's absolutely nonsensical. And just look at their careers and who they were as a player for the majority of their career. Like, short of those 2 playoff runs, Eli was not all that. He was kind of a compiler on a bad team, and I didn't really think of him as a game changer as a quarterback ever in his career.
No, he has 2 amazing Super Bowl plays that help put him into that category. Like he's got those 2. That's the main part of his candidacy. He had a very good career. Like, I'm not taking that away from him. But when you compare quarterbacks, Eli Manning, what did he do to change the NFL?
Nothing. In fact, he would be somebody you'd point to as propagating the same thing in the NFL for a second generation and for the 3rd time out of a family playing quarterback in the NFL, right? Between his dad and his brother and then him. He didn't change anything. It was just more Manning. Like, I had enough of that stuff. And also, too, the 2 big plays in those 2 Super Bowls, Brandon. The throw to Tyree, the helmet catch. Is the throw better or is the catch better?
The catch is better. Yeah.
The catch is better. And the Manningham completion along the sideline. Is the throw better or is the catch better?
It's the catch.
I'd say that one's debatable, but I'd say
it was a very good throw. But yes, it's
yeah. So even those 2 big time plays, I kind of look at those and I'm like, yeah. Also, great plays by Tyree and Manningham. But.
Yeah. Regular season record for Eli Manning, 117 and 117. Not even a winning record in his NFL regular season career.
Yeah. I mean, if that's not mediocre, I don't know what is.
It's the very definition compared to Russ, who was 121 and 80 with a tie.
Yeah.
Stupid
and
tie.
think about like how many of those losses have come towards the end of his career with Broncos, Steelers, Giants, right?
Right.
And just how prolific he was as a Seahawk. His 10-year peak with the Seahawks is just, you just don't do better than that. That's as good as it gets.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and he even had some success. I think he had seasons of like 4 game-winning drives in Denver each season. So he did continue to come back and yeah, he had 3 game-winning drives and fourth quarter comebacks in 2022 with the Broncos, 4 in 2023, and then 1 with Pittsburgh in 24.
Okay, so his second season in Denver, they damn near made the playoffs, and they tried to bench him for contract stuff, and Sean Payton was stabbing him in the back, and he still damn near got to the playoffs that year.
Yep.
And then did they make the playoffs the year he was with the Steelers?
If not, they were
and go
real
one and
close.
Done? I think they did.
Yes, they did. They lost to the Ravens in the wild card.
There you go. Even as a Steeler Russ made the playoffs. But he's not a Hall of Famer.
Well, I think in our Better at Life segment, we could close the book on our feelings of his Hall of Fame candidacy, Adam.
Yeah, man, because Better at Life has to go for Russ. And look, at the end of the day, it's interesting you brought up that SI article, because that was going to be my Better at Life, not for the questioning of the writer or the headline writer, but for the fact that the 5 out of the 8 Hall of Fame voters got it right. Like, they have it figured out. And look, I have to say that Russell Wilson, all-time favorite player, might be, it's really close for me. Like, he's in the top 2 to 3, no doubt about it. And, you know, he came into my sports fan life, my fandom, when I needed that. I needed the positivity and the winning and the fun and the happiness that all brought, and the messaging that really did filter into my own thought process in, you know, making me more optimistic. Also, too, like, Russ will forever hold a really, really special place in my heart because of his visits to Children's, the hospital. You know, I've talked about it on the pod before, but my daughter doesn't walk and use the bathroom and you know, be a complete person without Children's Hospital in Seattle. And like, for him to support a place that is so special to me and my daughter in what they were able to do for us, like that, I mean, there's not another quarterback that's going to walk through the door for the Seattle Seahawks that's going to be able to do that for me in that way, right?
Yeah.
And on top of that, like, kill him if you want for being corny. I don't care. It's who he is. I'd rather take the Carlton of quarterbacks, who's great, than the coolest Jeff George out there. Like, right. I really do believe that. And man, Brandon, he's better at life to me, and I'm sure you feel the same.
Yeah, I think that there's some of that stuff that I think that it becomes tough to embrace, but it is part of his personality, and it's part of who he is. And he's shown that it's not just him putting on a show. That's just who he is. And I think that when someone is authentic like that, I think that deserves to be embraced, even if it's just because that's who they are. And I like that he's continued to just be who he is. He hasn't tried to change it, despite being married to a music superstar. And you know, he's hearing him talk about what he's going to do in retirement, and talking about how Future said, his child Future was saying how, does this mean we're going to play more baseball and that sort of thing? And they immediately went out and played some baseball. So yeah, it's a cool thing. If Russell Wilson doesn't make the Hall of Fame, Adam, this is who you're keeping out. One, he would be the first black quarterback in the Hall of Fame with a Super Bowl win. So if he's kept out, you wouldn't have that. Russell Wilson's 9 playoff wins are tied for 13th most by a quarterback in NFL history. Every quarterback with at least 9 playoff wins that has been eligible for the Hall is in Canton, aside from Donovan McNabb. There's 3 other that have yet to go on the ballot: Joe Flacco, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger. Flacco, I don't know if he might be in the Donovan McNabb category, but again, 9 playoff wins, 13th most. 10 plus. Wilson's teams won 10 plus games in 9 different seasons. Only 10 starting quarterbacks in NFL history had 10 seasons of 10 plus wins. 6 of the 10 are in the Hall of Fame. Brady and Rodgers will get there eventually. The only other 2, Craig Morton and Roethlisberger, as we've talked about, Roethlisberger we think would get in. 7 seasons with a passer rating over 100, which ranks 5th all time behind only 4 quarterbacks who are clearly Hall of Famers. Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Steve Young, and 4th quarter comebacks. We talked about that. He's 9th, and we showed where he was on that list. And yes, closing it out, the only player in NFL history, 40,000 plus passing yards and 5,000 rushing yards. The greatest dual threat quarterback of this generation.
Greatest Seahawks quarterback to this point, and a quality human being when it's all said and done as well. And he was a guy that was easy to root for. I mean, I love Russell Carrington Wilson. I do, and I forever will. As far as my fandom's concerned. And Brandon, he's not only better at life than Skip Bayless, but that's my quarterback.
That's my quarterback. Better at life than Skip Bayless. And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.